Pastors make the worst Christian leaders. Hi, I'm Scott,
Hi, I'm Mark.
and this is Church is Lame, the podcast where we fix the church by talking about stupid things churches do that break the entire body.
So, who the heck is supposed to lead us in the church if pastors are the worst Christian leaders?
Now, what did you learn when you did, what do they call that? Bible League or Bible competition?
That sounds like a made-up thing.
No, it's really not. It's really kind of like a game show all around the country for school-age students to compete about their biblical knowledge. One of the first rules is if you don't know the answer is probably Jesus.
Yeah, like that's right up there with like the idea that like people would have these like massive kind of cotillion ball things where they like, it's just daddies and their daughters, and they like make their daughters swear that they're not going to have sex, and then they have a daddy-daughter dance, which is in the context kind of disturbing and worrisome. Like it just all sounds like fiction to me.
Oh no, it's real. I was part of I was not part of it because I did not become a Christian until I was an adult. But yeah, no, it's real. It's absolutely real. So if you can envision this, there's like a briefcase with a brain box, right?
Okay.
And there's 6 paddles, and the paddles kind of look like a sustain switch on a electric keyboard, like just a little thing you press.
Mm-hmm.
And the minute you press it, so there's 6 of those, right? 3 of those per team. And so you like obviously, like if you know the answer to the question, you hit the paddle and you answer the question, right? But what all the kids do before every match, because every match is a different briefcase with different paddles, right? They literally sit there and they figure out how far they can press the paddle down without setting the buzzer off, so that they can have a time advantage if they know the answer.
Yeah.
It's serious stuff. Yeah, it's serious. Like it's serious, nerd cred in the church world.
I'm going to have to go watch The Thing like 3 times in a row. John Carpenter's version of it, not the old one. Just to like cleanse my mind of the horrifying images that you just gave me.
I know you're not supposed to put anything in your ears, but tonight might be a good time to like throw some soap and some disinfecting kind of stuff in there.
Yeah, be careful though with the soap, because it can get really stuck in there. Not that I have done this to myself, just trust me.
Garlic and rosaries. But let's move on.
All
Moving right along. Okay. All right. So first story of the week. Religious right groups' tax status changes demean both church and state. And that's a really terrible headline from religionnews.com. That is the worst headline ever. But let me just break it down for you. Everybody hates paying taxes. I hate paying taxes. You hate paying taxes. We all hate paying taxes. It's perfectly reasonable to feel that way. We're all in there together. So we just mourn together about the reality of taxes, right?
Yeah.
But here's the deal. Churches make a deal with the U.S. government. You will let us be a nonprofit religious organization, and we will not talk about political things, or more importantly, we will not endorse political candidates and political positions. And in return for that consideration of not talking politics, even though we have this incredibly influential pulpit, we don't have to pay taxes, right? It's been a reasonable solution to a kind of interesting problem in America, where you have these organizations that make tons of money, right, but are actually doing, for the most part, like good charitable work with it. So you want to give them the freedom to do that good charitable work. But obviously this is America, and you can't have anything good without somebody touching it and turning it to crap, right?
That's just so true.
Right. So what we have is in America is we now have all these political action committees and think tanks and these quasi ministries. I don't want to call them churches because they're clearly not churches, right? They are not these buildings where people come into on Sunday morning to sing some songs and hear an inspirational message, feed some hungry people and clothe some naked people, right? It's not that. These are organizations that take in gobs and gobs and gobs of money in order to do studies and affect politics by endorsing people's campaigns, by doing media and doing press, and they are using money specifically to affect politics. But now we have this, the Family Research Council and its president, Tony Perkins, they have actually been granted the status of a church. And even though they're not doing church kind of things, they are now exempt from paying taxes. Praise Jesus.
And can I share something with you about
please.
the Family Research Council?
If you must.
Yeah, so remember last episode how I mentioned, the Southern Poverty Law Center and their extremist group list?
I have an inkling.
Yeah, so this Family Research Council was also on the same list as, that the D. James Kennedy Ministries.
Exactly.
For anti-LGBT hate speech.
Yeah. It's funny because, if you go, let's go to the website of the Family Research Council really quick here. I know I'm gonna avoid I'm gonna regret this rather, but let's do it.
Can you read the website while your eyes are closed?
I don't think so, but I'll try. The reason I wanted to do this is just so I could read you their about page, their about paragraph. It's not even a page, it's just a paragraph.
I'm afraid, Mommy.
Right. The Family Research Council is a nonprofit research and educational organization dedicated to articulating and advancing a family-centered philosophy of public life. It's right there in their freaking about statement. They are a research and educational organization. Now, they do research and education so that they can then do campaigns, right? Propaganda in order to affect politics. But even by their own admission, they are not a church. Yet somehow the bureaucrats in Washington have designated them so because the Family Research Council has put enough money in their campaigns to get whatever they want. Drives me crazy that for decades, Christian thinkers have been trying to tell me that it's all about morals and it's all about ethics. It's all about principle. It's all about being above reproach. All the while doing every under the board, behind the curtain, underhanded thing you can do to get around doing what's right. Something simple like, if you're not a church, pay your damn taxes. Drives me nuts.
And it's terrible. People want to define a church so loosely just so they can avoid paying taxes. And what for? What's your friggin' problem with paying the taxes? I'll tell you what it is, because this isn't like the religious left. This is the religious right.
Yeah.
The people are saying that, well, government is bad. Well, then you're using government to impose your will on other human beings. So that means that you're bad.
Right. And the thing that I always come back to every time we have an episode is, how does this break the church? Because this seems like to be a Christian organization and they are espousing Christian ideals. So how can this possibly be bad? But I think there's a cautionary tale in here that if the Family Research Council can be deemed a church, then anybody can be deemed a church. And that, and I know that you hate the argument specifically of the slippery slope kind of idea, right?
Not a fan of it.
No, and neither am I. But everybody's okay as long as it's like the Family Research Council. Okay, yeah, we can give them a pass because they're clearly doing, old-timey Christian kind of ideals, But what happens, when it is the Church of the Holy Blessed LGBTQ Mother, that wants to now be considered a church instead of a political action committee, all of a sudden we have the precedent here. We've done it. We've said that any political action committee that does religious things can now be considered a church,
Yeah, and religious things, right? And as generic as that statement is, that is about as specific as the law gets on these things, too.
And that's all the specific as the law should get, because Muslims are a religion, Jewish religion, Buddhist religion, atheists, right? They are all doing things in the name of religion. And they are American citizens who should be able to avail themselves of all the same rights and freedoms as any other citizen. Right.
And the whole, the whole tax exempt thing for churches, right? I think we've complained about this before, right? Where you have people will deliberately preach, specific political positions and candidate endorsements from the pulpit.
Yeah.
Just to, to spite the man or whatever, right? And that should cause a church to lose its position, immediately. But,
Yeah, I think really at the end of the day, that law is just a law whose usefulness is past its time, right? That law
Uh-huh.
never I mean that law understood the Catholic Church that was an anomaly in how big and how wealthy it was. But now you throw a rock in any direction and you're going to hit a mega church that has 20 campuses and worth tens of millions of dollars, right? And
Yeah,
so
like there needs to be a limit to where like this exemption goes.
right. The idea that pastors now live at or near the poverty line is now a silly um, contrivance of nostalgic thinking. You
Mhm.
know, pastors now make at or near the same wage as anybody else, especially somebody working at McDonald's or Wendy's or any other job where we think, well, $15 is too much for them to be working that job. You know, pastors are doing a lot better than that.
Yeah, it's like if you can afford a house that's bigger than what you need, and you can afford a luxury car, and I guess to maybe be more specific, being able to own a car at all is kind of a luxury. But I mean, like, if you're driving a brand new Cadillac, you're paid too much.
Right. But that's the thing. That's the modern church is now the pastor doesn't own the house. The church owns the house. The pastor doesn't have to buy a car because the church will buy one for him for as a business expense. You know, and so like the church is caught up, it financially speaking, to all the loopholes that the legal system will allow them to, right?
And
And
it
so
just,
yeah,
and so when this like this headline, right, it demeans both the church and the state, like that's why.
exactly right. Exactly right. Okay, I think we've beaten this one to death. Let's move on.
All right.
Okay.
What more dumb do you got for me?
Oh, this goes beyond dumb. This goes like to the point of predictably dumb, right?
Okay.
Like I don't think it surprises anybody that Trump fans are white, that they're young, that they're male, that they have some sort of Judeo-Christian ethic to them, right?
I'm shocked that you're saying any of this.
I know, say it ain't so.
Mm,
And so you just knew that when January 6th happened, that we weren't just going to find young, angry men. We knew that we were going to find young, angry Christian leaders. And
oh
so,
my.
from the Christian Post, FBI arrests youth pastor for the involvement in the January 6th riots. Now, let me qualify this. Like, this guy was not shooting anybody. He was not taking anybody hostage. Nothing like that. So,
Mhm.
let's not paint him as kind of like the guy like going through looking for hostages to take. That's not this guy, right?
Yeah.
But he was the guy who was willing to, record himself like I'm probably going to lose my job as a pastor after this. And he was the
Yeah.
guy willing to like take down the barriers, like the chain link barriers and stuff like that, and move them out of the way so the masses could continue on, right? And if this is you, if your mode of pastoral leadership and being a pastor to kids is to teach them anytime you don't like something, go violent. Like that is not above reproach. That is not the man of God that Jesus is calling you to be. You know, when he says offer, if somebody strikes your one cheek, offer him the other. This does not sound a whole lot like offering the other cheek. This sounds like offering a can of whoop ass.
I'm not even sure what this is offering, to be honest, because I mean
Yeah.
it's just like, when you're saying things on your little video like I'm probably going to lose my job as a pastor for this, that tells me that you are putting your political dedication to a specific political party over your mission as a vocational pastor.
Exactly. Thank you for saying that. I really appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah, so like if you want to like answer that question, like how does this break the church?
Yeah.
Well, that right there, like if you're a pastor, your job is to, it should be vocation, a calling, in other words,
Yep.
you are called to this job and you are to minister to the needs of your people. The needs of your people are not to go and, storm the freaking Capitol building
Right.
or even to go there and protest it. I mean, like we should not be okay, let me back up just one thing, right?
Before you go where you're about to go, let me just say this, maybe because I think I know where you're about to go. Let's go to his second statement.
Okay.
I think we're to a point where talk is cheap, he says. And that was the part that made me go, what the crap is going on here? You're a pastor. You're a youth pastor. Your job is literally to talk to young people about the goodness of God and the love of Jesus and the way that the Holy Spirit can impact a person's life and send their life in a whole new, wonderful direction with purpose and meaning behind it. If talk is cheap, why in the world are you even a pastor?
Well, there's that. Yeah.
No, I mean, that's just kind of like, am I wrong? Am I like, is there more to a past? Like, that, let me, before I go someplace stupid, I was about to ask the question, is there really anything more to pastoralship than talking? You know,
I mean,
and of
yeah.
course there is. Of course there's more to leadership than talking. But at the end of the day, I think where I was trying to go was words. Words is the avenue, is the highway of that our ideas travel. You know what I mean?
Right. You know, and, you know, rhetoric, you know, because I'll say rhetoric instead of words, right? Because like rhetoric, if what you are preaching isn't affecting you enough where you can't realize you shouldn't be championing a government as a Christian. And I'm not saying that you can't vote as a Christian. I'm not saying you can't be politically engaged as a Christian.
Absolutely.
You know, by all means, do these things.
Yeah.
But you should not be sitting there saying, well, this government is more important to me than Jesus, because quite frankly, it shouldn't matter. If the government were to collapse today, you know, the federal government, that is, right? Like most of our lives wouldn't really change in the short term.
Right.
But like for us, it shouldn't matter that like, oh, the Republican Party and the Democratic Party just went away. Now we have, you know, the Whigs and the Tories, whatever we get, you know, it's like, it doesn't matter. Like we serve Jesus. And you know, you should, if you are in ministry, that is your mission. Yeah. You know, I mean, maybe I should use different words. I don't know.
No, let me, I understand. And I think I am in total agreement with the idea that in many cases, actions speak louder than words. But if that's going to be the position of Tyler here, and if that's going to be my position, we need to be dotting our I's and crossing our T's and checking and rechecking and checking again, and next week check again, that our actions match the commands of Jesus, that we are doing the things that he asks us to do. If we're going to use our actions to replace words, we need to make sure that the message people get from our actions is crystal clear, right? We feed people because Jesus loves people and he would never want them to starve physically or starve spiritually, right? We clothe people because we would never want people to be physically unprotected or spiritually unprotected, right? We house people, right? Because in the church, everybody has shelter in Jesus, right? So our actions should be absolutely unmistakable for the what we do and the why we do it and the message we want the world to understand through our actions. And this is not what happened here. Instead, we have just kind of another young, angry guy who did something that, like, at the moment, he didn't regret. But I think, 20, 30 years from now, as he looks upon the whole of his life, he, on the whole, he will probably have lived a good life, having learned a lesson from this. But I bet you that as he looks at this moment in history, he may say out loud, I'm proud of what I did. But I'm willing to bet you in the recesses of his mind, he's going to wonder if this was a turning point in his life that was really kind of for the worse.
Yeah, I don't want to speculate too much on what's going on inside this dude's head.
Yeah.
Because I'd probably be afraid if I knew. But, it's like, this dude, like, I'm with you. Like, I really hope that at some point he looks back on this and goes, that was the dumbest thing I've ever done. It's like, but then, my question for this guy is like, hey, are you a pastor? Yeah. I mean, I don't want to qualify and say youth pastor, because that almost demeans that it's a pastoral position. It's like, what are you a pastor or are you a political activist? Because you need to make up, your mind here. If you're going to be politically active as a pastor, then it better be to advocate for like Jesus things.
Yeah.
For like feeding like the hungry and clothing the naked and such.
Yep. I agree 100%. Like, I acknowledge that in the American church there is a reality that in most churches there is an unspoken apprenticeship process, and that process is, hey, before you go get to talk to the big church, you need to show us you know what you're doing by talking to the young folks, And I understand that, but I agree with you. Like, regardless, and there are those pastors who do feel called to youth ministry, and God bless you all. You guys are amazing, guys and gals. You're just totally amazing. But for most pastors, it really is kind of a part of the process of becoming a senior pastor. But I utterly agree with you. All right, moving on.
All right, move me.
And once again, under the heading of pastors make the worst Christian leaders, the Southern Baptist Convention back in the headlines for different stupidity.
Okay.
So like,
at least they're changing it up, right?
I guess, I don't know. Maybe like you can only take so many weeks of being beat down before you feel like you have to kind of do that. Like, hey guys, we are doing some good stuff over here. Like, I personally don't think that's a really great. Like, I think you just kind of have to take your punches for a while,
Yeah.
And nobody in any church I've ever been to has been willing to do that, including myself. Like, nobody ever wants to take punches ever, and really just kind of like accept that you've got to go through a season of humility,
Yeah.
Right. But so the SBC kind of out of nowhere passes a resolution condemning the forced assimilation of indigenous people. Essentially, they're saying that the way we dealt with Native Americans is bad, very bad.
Yeah,
it's like, well, thanks for coming to the party. Like, we've all known this for quite a while, but if you want to put it in and codify it, like, okay.
I know it's like, you're like, thanks for coming to the party, but it's more like they showed up the day after the party and not even to help clean up.
Yeah. And here's the part that, like, the ones like you talk about relitigation last episode. We talked about the idea that like things like slavery, like we've all established now that slavery was bad. Being a Nazi is bad. The way we treated the Native Americans in America is bad. But here's the thing. Racism still exists. We still treat Native Americans like fifth-class human beings. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So on the one hand, it's like the SBC is reminding us of just how terribly behind the whole church is when it comes to all these matters. And it's almost like they're announcing, hey, everybody, we are officially irrelevant.
Yeah, and it's not like that, either you or me is trying to say that, like, Christianity isn't like, like the truest faith, right? It's just that, you should never force other people out of their indigenous ways of life, out of their cultural ways of life, because you think you know better than them. It's like converting by the sword, only the sword is, school marm's, ruler, right? That you can just wrap across your knuckles.
Right.
And this is tragic. I mean, this is nothing compared to the displacement of Native Americans off of their native lands.
Yeah.
Or the fact that, like, how there's like all these reservations around Chicago. Oh, that's right. Because they were extinctified by the settlers here.
Yeah.
Those few Native Americans that are left are, I would say, the lucky ones. They're not lucky. They're super unfortunate that, they often don't have access to their lands. And, it's easy for me to say when, like, giving the natives back their land doesn't mean that I have to leave my home.
Right.
But, it's just like, we have a history where it's like there are sacred lands that are owned by the U.S. government right now. It's like, we need to give them back. There was recently there was a whole shebang about in Hawaii. There was an observatory people wanted to put up, and I will not begin to try to pronounce the name of the mountain that it was on.
Yeah.
Because I will only annihilate it.
Right.
But like, this is sacred land. It's like, it'd be like, going to, Mount Rushmore and saying, well, we're gonna level off George's head and put up a telescope.
Yeah.
Like that wouldn't fly, but people want to make that fly there. So it's like, I kind of wish the SBC would have kind of caught up to be like, there are still problems with how, people relate with native peoples, and not just in the United States, but also in the United States territories.
Yeah.
Such as, Samoa. So it's like, we need to address those issues, condemn that stuff. Don't worry about the thing that stopped happening. I don't know how long ago.
Yeah. The sad part about this is that Native people, Native Americans in particular, are still getting swindled by local, state, and federal governments all around the country.
Mm-hmm.
They're not fighting for more. They're just fighting not to lose what they have and what they've already been promised. And I'm not an expert on these matters. I'm just the guy who Googles stuff for a couple hours and gets the most basic level of understanding on any of this stuff. But injustice is injustice. And for those of us who profess Christ, justice should matter to us a lot. Redemption should matter to us a lot. Shalom should matter to us a lot. Living at peace with ourselves, with those around us, and with our Lord and Savior should matter a lot. And the idea that we can just kind of see what's happening to our Native American community and just kind of go, oh, that's too bad. And then go back to spending like 5 hours, like really sweating about our stock portfolio, kind of tells you where our priorities are as a religion, as a country. And it really is, in some way, one of the more heartbreaking things, like, to consider after the initial silliness of the headline and the whole, like, thanks for coming to the party, SBC kind of thing. Like, it really is a moment of just kind of going, we really have not done right by our Native Americans.
Yeah, and kind of going back to, our previous article, where the guy says, we're at the point where talk is cheap. Well, this is a case in which talk is cheap.
Right.
Nobody cares, I'm not gonna say nobody cares, right? It's if you're going to condemn a thing that, your denomination was explicitly participant in the past, that's a good thing. Condemn it. But what are you doing? Because there is still modern day fallout from those things you have done.
Exactly.
When you want to talk about justice, you need to give restitution for the things that you have done.
Right. We talked about that before, like true biblical reconciliation. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, just don't merely say things like this, because it kind of looks like you're just trying to make the libs happy. I mean, for lack of a better way of describing this, it's like actually do the things in keeping with repentance, like John the Baptist said.
Right. And let's be clear here. There is not a single evangelical Christian anywhere who gives a crap about making the libs happy.
That's a good point.
You know what I mean? All right. So that's my dose of silliness for the week. I've had it. I've you can only listen to so much of this stuff before you kind of go, man, I feel dirty just talking about it sometimes,
I know. Cause it's like, for how many years, were these people ringing the school bells to cause people to go there and get their Christian education and forget about all the traditions of their elders.
Exactly. And here's an idea. Maybe instead of considering to take from our Native Americans, maybe we might actually learn something from like the way that they treat everything as sacred. Maybe we'd want some of that to rub off on us a little bit. Maybe we kind of relearn what it means to be sacred again. That may not be a bad thing.
You mean treat God's creation as a sacred thing?
What? No.
That's just silly talk.
I didn't say that. That could not have been what I said.
I know, you're not going to go to evangelical heaven for having said that.
Right. Hey, let's move on here. We are, as always, incredibly thankful for our YouTube community. And we had a new comment this week that I definitely wanted to get to.
All right.
Because I wanted to, just always, as always, as much as we can, interact with our community. Craig Lindahl, one day ago. This is in response to a video we did about the Florida churches that are splitting from the United Methodist Church. And his comment is, you're not being completely honest here. The traditional plan kept the wording in the discipline, parenthesis, our Constitution, end parenthesis, quote, homosexuality is incompatible with Christianity, end quote. That doesn't mean you can't be LGBTQ in the Methodist Church. It means you can't serve as a minister, nor can UMC ministers offer same-sex marriages.
Yeah, like
Craig, let me go first here, real quick.
okay.
When I first read this, it was my instinct, and when I replied in the comments, I kind of did launch off on him a little bit, and I don't want to do the same thing here in the same way. I do think that it's a weird parsing of words when on one side we say to the LGBT community, "Hey, you can have a church home here," but on the other hand we say, but you really can't be who you really are. Like, regular people get married. Regular people desire to serve their church in meaningful ways, right? And hopefully in the years of serving in meaningful ways, hopefully they gain positions of trust and responsibility. And so we're basically telling this one class of sinners, because we're all sinners, right? We all lie or cheat or commit adultery or have told a fib in court. Like, we're all sinners of one kind or another. We just kind of exclude this one group and say, well, no, as long as you are who you are, you will always be a second-class citizen in our church. And so I appreciate what you're saying, and I appreciate how you've been trained to see this as a sustainable middle ground. But it's not. It's not a sustainable middle ground for anybody who is LGBTQ and looking for true home in a church.
Yeah, it's second class citizen, I think, is a good way of putting it. But yeah, like to the commenter that made this comment, yeah, it's like you are saying the kinds of words that people say when they want to go along with something, but they ultimately see that it kind of sucks too.
Yeah, it's a very carefully crafted statement that is repeated in this form all over the church world in America. Something very similar to this. Like, yes, we love you and you're more than welcome in our church, but when you are ready to get married or when you do kind of look for that leadership role, those won't be available to you here.
Yeah,
right?
and
they think that kind of separate. They think that those are two separate and distinct things. Your attendantship and who you are. It's like no. I'm a Christian. I'm a Christ follower. Like, that designation is who I am. And so we're not gonna do this thing where, like, oh well, 50% of me is an attender, and 50% of me is a gay person. No. I'm one person. Like, and this is my church home where I can be me, and you love me, and we do this thing called life together, or we don't. Not in any meaningful way, at least.
Yeah, and I also want to say, it's like, it's that saying like, well, it doesn't mean you can't be gay. Well, actually, it does.
Right.
As you pointed out.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, if you think that's what it means, then, go out and rent, a gay couple somewhere. There's got to be like rent-a-gays or something out there, right?
Oh my God, where is this going?
I know, right? Be very afraid. But like, have them come to your church, your United Methodist Church. Make sure that when they walk in, they're holding hands. And make sure that at least once, like, they give each other a short but affectionate kiss. And then you tell me just how affirming your traditionalists are about them.
Yeah.
Because I can guarantee they don't want to even know that they're gay.
Yeah.
They want no part of it. Because when you say to somebody, it's like, look, the Christian expectation on sexual ethics is that you do not have sex if you are not married. So by saying you cannot get married, you're saying that you cannot have sex, which means a fundamental part of your being, your sexuality, is inexpressible.
Right.
And if you said that to a straight couple, because let's say that they were alcoholics, and you're like, well, you can't get married because you're sinners, and you can't have sex because you're not married. And they're going to be like, no, we're going to go marry.
Right. Yeah.
And do our thing. It's like, it's absurd to the max. And it's it's that attempt to find a middle ground, but you don't apparently know any gay people, because go ask them if that's a middle ground to them.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the whole alcoholism thing, because there is an aspect of this that's generational, right? There is a generation of Christian thinkers that are totally okay with the idea of secret sin. Like, if you're an alcoholic, it's fine. We don't need to know about it. Just don't do it at church, right? If you're a drug addict, that's fine. We just don't need to do, we don't need to know about it. Don't do it at church. If you're cheating on your wife, that's fine. We don't need to know about it. Don't do it at church, right? And so there is a generational thought that says, look, as long as you look the right way and do the right thing and perform the right way for the 2 hours a week that you're in this building, like, we could not be happier with you, you know? But that is old thinking. And, obviously, as we refine our thinking, as we refine our theology, as we refine our hermeneutics, like, we understand that every moment of your life is spiritual. Every moment of your life is an act of worship. Every moment of your life is opportunity, right? To be an earthen vessel, for one way of putting it, right? And so, no, it does matter what you do at home. It does matter what you do the other 22 hours of the day, the other 6 days of the week. It all matters. And if it matters the other 6 days, 22 hours, then, and if it's okay for me to do it out there, then why is it any different once I come into the walls of the church? So, like, I don't want, Craig.
Without just saying because,
right.
I don't know.
So Craig, I appreciate your comment. I absolutely do. I do think that this view that you have, that you don't have alone, by the way, we know that your view is shared by many as a sustainable middle ground. We just don't agree that it's sustainable, and we think that it'll bear itself out and become obvious as time goes on.
Yeah, or maybe more the point, we don't believe that there is a middle ground. You're on one side of this, or you are on the other, because you can't expect people to live half a life. Yeah, we'll see how that works. Once again, I think that's a very generational thing. Like, I think there are people who think, like, yeah, totally, you can do a half-life thing. We do it all the time. I'm a different person at work than I am at home. I'm a different person at church. So I think there are people who do think that exactly. And, I think you and I are in agreement that that's not a real thing. Okay. Anyway, enough. Craig, let me apologize. I felt like we came down pretty hard on you there, and we did not mean to come down hard on you. We just meant to come down hard on this line of thinking. So my apologies if we came down hard on you specifically. That being said, we are still appreciative that you took the time to comment and you took the time to say the things that you said that needed to be said. We appreciate that. We appreciate you. Thank you. For everybody else out there, we are everywhere. Every search box that you look at, type in Church is Lame, and you'll find us on a website or on YouTube or on a podcast if you like listening in your headphones, in your car, on your bicycle. By all means, hit the like button and subscribe button. Helps with the algorithm. And if you want to talk to us right away, send us an email, churchesnamepodcast@gmail.com. Yes, we appreciate your input, even if you disagree with us and think we're a couple of morons.
Which we are.
I mean, well, yeah, like I said, we just troll headlines when we talk about it. But hey, that's what we're here for. We're to entertain and inform,
there we go.
and then hopefully maybe touch something in you.
Hey, and
with your consent.
Unlike the FRC, we pay our taxes too.
Yeah, and we are not yet labeled a Christian hate group.
There we go.
So there's always that.
Progress.
Yes. We're right there in perfect company with all these great organizations like Rob Bell's organization, for instance.
Hey, nice. That's a good segue.
Well, I try.
Excellent. Rob Bell, we're sorry we didn't make it to your part of the program, but we're gonna get there. It's like you're part of the program, like we're ice skating. Like, hey, I give Rob Bell a 9.5 for artistic merit, but he didn't land the quad.
Oh, now I have a picture of Rob Bell ice skating, which is because he looks lanky and awkward to me on ice skates. I don't know if that's how he actually looks on ice skates, but maybe we'll get to find out one day. He'll make a new Numa video where he's ice skating the whole time. Yes,
that's gonna be my new petition. Let's have Rob Bell do a ice skating Numa video.
Oh my gosh. We are just full of great ideas.
We are. We're the best thinkers.
Oh my gosh. Oh, well, and with that, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift his countenance upon you and give you his peace. Amen.